I am an angry man. Angry enough to have killed my father. Angry enough to destroy goldfish in the palm of my hand. Angry enough to have sex with a dog. Angry enough to burn holes in the backs of my hands like melting plastic. Angry enough to threaten myself with death. Angry enough to drive a car without oil. Angry enough to kill wasps slowly. Angry enough to never read another newspaper. Angry enough to clean toilets in the house of the mad. Angry enough to drink poison. Angry enough to denounce God as a liar. Angry enough to clean my teeth till my gums bleed. Angry enough to make 600 drawings in the tea huts of hell. Angry enough to mock policemen in the night. Angry enough to smash plates and stab myself in the foot. Angry enough to set fire to my desk. Angry enough to walk with stones in my boots. Angry enough to hate all celebrity. Angry enough to stare into the sun. Angry enough to punch myself on the nose. Angry enough to blow off my fingers with a firework. Angry enough to refuse to become famous. Angry enough to threaten the dead. Angry enough to cook a meal for my enemies. Angry enough to polish my father's Rolls Royce with paint stripper. Angry enough to welcome my girlfriend's lovers. Angry enough to fall in love with women who despise me. Angry enough to smash my hand with a 4-pound club hammer. Angry enough to skin a rabbit. Angry enough to punch my typewriter. Angry enough to boil a kettle dry. Angry enough to swallow my tongue. Angry enough to inspire the contempt of the righteous. Angry enough to overwind a pocket watch. Angry enough to name the names of those I've wished dead. Angry enough to tell of all the secrets of my lovers. Angry enough to deny myself everything. Angry enough to have 12 bad teeth. Angry enough to say nothing.